to another episode of Rimshots with Sean. We have actually with us tonight one of our more popular people when we did Barstools way back when, Monsieur Ryan Boudreau. Ryan, thanks for doing this. We're actually at our, why don't you tell us where we're at?
Yeah, we're actually at my cousin Weldon Boudreau's house. So he's over at, what is this place? Tintallon?
Timberley, something like that,
Timberley. So yeah, we're here just chilling out. Me and Weldon were working on a few things for a French project coming up. So yeah, he has a beautiful house here, nice property. It's kind of a countryside, reminds me of Cape Breton.
Well, yeah, you know what? I walked in and it was like, I made the comment or text that in French, Boudreau's like Smith in English, right? Yeah. I didn't realize there was a relative sort of thing, which is Romani, because I walk in and I felt like I was in Wayne and Teresa's house.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I could close my eyes and go into the fridge and get something. But so anyway, I thought we're doing this little offshoot of Barstool. So just for anybody that doesn't know, Ryan and I both play in the frequency. Bang on deadly rhythm section. Anybody comes and checks us out, what we're talking about. But what I haven't chatted with you much. I mean, the last show that we did was at Dolan's a month and a half ago. What have you been up to since?
You know what? Just the last month or so, I've been working on a few different projects. One project is with Weldon. Another project is just kind of getting together some instrumental tracks that I've been wanting to work on. I've always wanted to make it like an instrumental project.
Okay.
Just kind of like, funkier kind of stuff.
Nice.
Sometimes when I'm driving on the highway, I just like listening to instrumental music, kind of like funkier stuff, even from the 70s or 80s. So I've kind of, it inspired me to kind of, get some things together, get some tracks together, and kind of, maybe record something in the near future. So, in some ways, like the time off actually worked out to kind of, just work on original material. So, but it has been about a month since we gigged together. So, we usually went from like 3 shows a week, 4 shows a week.
Well, to put it in perspective, a lot of people don't realize. I mean, like there was one year that the frequency did close to 80 shows in a year.
Oh, yeah.
Forget about the money, but I mean, it's a lot of work, and you go from, playing a lot to not playing at all. It's not fun.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the good thing, the blessing out of it is that it gives us time to kind of work on more original stuff and kind of take a breather. But yeah, like when we went from playing like 3 times a week to not playing in a month, it seems like we haven't played in forever, but it's only been 4 weeks, but it's, it seems longer than what it is.
Well, this is it. And I remember last year, so I mean, we had booked a show in December at Monty's. And it was sold out, and at that time we were allowed to have 150 people. So when they opened back up, you're only allowed to have 100 people. So we had to actually do 2 shows, which we did in March.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that always cracks me up is every time we get together, it doesn't matter how little we played. The second we all get in a room, it sounds like we've been playing for years.
Which is great, because one of the things that we've done on the time off from playing is, Kyle called us in to do a few studio tracks with Charles Austin, and right away it kind of sounded good. Like the first take, it sounded good. So I was like, okay, we're not that rusty yet, so that's good.
Well, what I liked is, one of the tunes I think was like we took the first of 3 takes. Yeah. The tune that we did for Michelle, I think it was the second of 4 takes.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, we sat down. It was just literally like effortless. It was a lot of fun,
which is awesome. So yeah, it's going to be good. We had some frequency gigs that we had to postpone in the earlier part of the year, like January, February. But I'm sure in a few weeks, hopefully, knock on wood, things will be back to normal, and then we'll be rocking out again together on
stage. It's so funny because I get a text from Barry. He's like, "Yeah, the government's doing it again, so I guess I got to get Sam Fear and somebody else to play because I can't have bands even Savage." But anyway, and who knows what the heck they're doing?
Also, Dolan's probably had to close down again for the time being.
They shut everything down to the 31st of January. So I mean. Now, I actually heard, and if some of our friends in New Brunswick can corroborate this with me or not, but I heard some of the bars and restaurants said, the heck with you guys, we're open, and they did a wildcat. And there may or may not have been fines handed out, but so I think that's where it's going to start going if they don't start smartening up here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the good thing about where we're at now is at the beginning of the pandemic, they always predicted, this is going to take about 2 years, because remember the flu of 1918? Well, we don't remember the flu of 1918, but I remember like my grandmother talking about it, and she was alive, and my mom. I think my mom lost her grandmother in the flu of 1918. So back then, it took them about 2 years to eradicate it completely.
Yeah.
So when COVID started, they said, okay, well, this is going to be a 2-year thing. And it took about, as you remember, it took about 7 to 10 months just to come up with a vaccine and then to start rolling out the vaccines to the whole population. So now, coming in March, I think it's a 2-year mark, right? So
it is, yeah.
So hopefully by March, I mean, most people, like, I've got double vax, and I just got my boost yesterday, so my arm's kind of sore today, but, you know, if everyone does their part, and most of the people are vaccinated now, I assume by March and stuff that, you know, it'll go back to what it was before. Where
I read a study. I read a study that apparently the one thing that COVID can't get over the wall on is weed. So anyway,
I heard it has medical benefits.
There's all kinds of good stuff with weed, right? Yes. Not a weed partaker, but so we're gonna our next segment we're gonna talk about some gear and stuff, and as you know, we're gonna have Weldon and his daughter here. Some great. He was telling us there that that fiddle he got in Naboo, lovely picture of his mom. We're gonna get him and his daughter on. They're probably gonna do a tune for us too, which is great. Before we go to the next segment and talk about gear, I want to tell a funny story, and I know you'll know it. Where we were playing in St. John, and you brought the Rickenbacker.
Oh yeah, yes, that's right.
So Ryan gets this beautiful Rickenbacker, and if anybody knows that bass, they're very MIDI sounding, right? So it's like you just can't plug it in and expect it to. It's got a distinctive sound. So Kyle was doing sound, and he was trying to figure out. How to get the mid out and get more lows and more highs, and anyway, he started calling Ryan. What was it? Orville Rickenbacker. So that bass was gone the following Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. I was like, I'm gonna get a Rickenbacker and I'm just gonna explore, and I'm a fan of Geddy Lee and stuff, and it has its place and everything. But for me, I was always an old Fender guy where you can just plug in and it sounds bassy and really prevalent in the mix right away. So yeah, when I plugged in the Rickenbacker and you're playing Route 5th country stuff, I wasn't getting the song. At one point I just looked at Kyle and we just started laughing for I think he couldn't sing for the rest of the song. We just started laughing so much.
Well, and I always laugh every time Ryan gets a new bass. He comes in and it's just like, that looks like the one that you already have, man. It's like, and I don't know if that's what you have here.
It is basically.
And one's a 65 and one's a 63. Is that right?
Yeah, it's like a 69, and one's a combination of the 62 and 68 P bass. But and they both have a long history of where it came from. I kind of researched it before I bought it, but I've been using the 69 P bass particularly. I've used it for about 16 years now.
Nice.
And it's seen hundreds of shows and recording sessions, and I think that's someone I brought in when we did the recording.
Yeah. I mean, it always. And a shout out to our buddy Peter James. He had a really funny post the other day. I don't know if you saw it. He goes, if you're going to do product reviews at the bass, he goes, A, don't play like the guy in Primus, or don't try to play like the guy in Primus, and don't use a P bass.
It's funny because, and Peter's an awesome guy, but he loves to troll people that use just P basses because I think he's a 5-string bass guy. Whereas I'm the opposite. I'm a P bass guy, and I don't. 5 strings have its place, but there's nothing that beats a P to me. So
there you go.
Sorry,
nothing that beats a P to me. Oh yeah. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this segment up, but we're gonna come back. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and you're gonna want to tune into the next segment. Ryan's gonna bust open some of his vintage, and they are vintage. Some of them are older than me, and that's pretty darn old. So we're excited about that. So thanks a lot, Ryan. We'll get you on the next one. Welcome to another segment of Rimshots with Sean, here with Ryan Boudreau again. So this is the part we actually really want to talk about, which is cool. The last segment that we did, I joked about the fact that you say you get a new bass, and it's like, well, that's the same one. But talk about this monster that you have here, because this is the one that I'm used to seeing a lot.
Yeah, for sure. What we have here is a stock 1969 Fender Precision bass, and its history dates back brand new. A guy bought it, a session musician from Vancouver, British Columbia. His name was John Walsh, and he was a music producer and a session musician in Vancouver, and he actually used this bass for 30 years. And there was actually an album that he produced called the Kool-Aid Benefit album that he did in 1969, and it's actually become kind of a collector's issue.
Did you end up grabbing that? I remember your text.
Yeah, so they actually sent me, when they found out I had John Walsh's bass now, they actually sent me a copy of the reissued CD that has 2 CDs and a DVD, but this was like basically a classic album that was released around Vancouver, and I checked it out, and there's copies that were going for like $300 on eBay that are really sought after because it's a limited edition. But what it was is that there were hippie bands living in this house in Vancouver in 1969, and the government was going to shut down the house. So what happened is that this producer and the guy that owned this base, John Walsh, he got all the musicians and all the groups that were practicing in the house, and some of them were living in it, to actually record a track. So he got about 11 or 12 bands to record a track, produced it, and he called it the Kool-Aid Benefit album because the benefit was to save the house.
Right.
So it's become a collector's edition, on eBay until they finally reissued it about 10 years ago. And what happened is he had played this bass on that album. He produced the album, and then for 30 years gigged all over Vancouver, all over the West Coast with it. Unfortunately, John Walsh passed away in the late 90s, but his daughter moved to Nova Scotia, and she's actually a member of Symphony Nova Scotia.
Oh.
So one time I just had a Fender custom shop precision bass. I basically started with an American Standard, went to an American Vintage Series, went to the custom shop, which is the highest one you can get, but something still didn't feel right. Like, there was always something a little bit off or a little bit, so when I got that custom shop and I seen this ad for the 69 P bass, I contacted the woman and she explained the whole story about it, and I remember I just had my custom, and when I went over to play it, my brother was working at Long and McQuaid at the time, and I literally just went over with my custom shop. I'm like, give me whatever you can for this bass. And because I have a real 1969 that I want to buy, so I said, I don't care how much you give me, just give me money. I'll put the rest and I'll buy this bass. So, Kyle, my brother, hooked me up, and the guys at Long and McQuaid. So, we'll give a shout out to them. But
sure.
I just went over, bought it. This was about 16 years ago, just when my niece Olivia was born, and I've used it as my main bass ever since for 16 years. I mean, we had a contract one time with. We had a band called 7 Day Weekend. We played at the Pacifico basically every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This was the bass I used there for a whole year. Recorded on Elise Besler's album, Boudreau Vanier, like different stuff.
Yeah.
We'd go to Ottawa. When we'd go to Ottawa and play shows, I'd bring this bass. So this has flown with me. But yeah, this has basically been my main bass for 16 years. And
that's the bass that I hear.
Yeah.
All the time, and it sounds. It doesn't sound like a Rickenbacker.
No, exactly.
But no, it's got some real meat to it. And while we're talking, why don't you tell people what you play that through?
Now this, and if you could take a look here too, like you can see, like.
Oh yeah, she's got the scars.
Yeah, it's got all the battle scars and every kind of. It was like this when I got it, but then obviously there's been more kind of dings, and it's kind of like to think that every ding and every mark kind of tells a story of a past gig or a
Kyle's in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. So this is awesome, and then I play this through. I have two rigs. I have Ampeg SVT.
Yeah.
So it's an all tube head, and this particular SVT was made in the States, and I have a 410 cab, also made in the States. And I also have another 15-inch speaker, a combo amp.
Okay.
So depending on the gig, if I'm playing at a smaller venue like Split Crow or something, I'll just bring my 15-inch combo. If it's another place that's bigger like Pacifico or Ale House, then you can bring the big rig.
And I would like to say that Ryan carries and lugs.
Exactly.
I've never had to do it for him. It's exciting.
Exactly.
That's your normal go-to. We'll call it your Army issued axe of choice. And just I don't know if they can hear it, but you can hear the wonderful sound. That's unamplified. It just sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things where a Fender Precision bass, for me, you can't go wrong, because anytime you just plug it in, we did that session with Charles, and then as soon as, I just plugged in straight into the board. I didn't even run it from an amp.
That's right.
And then he came up to me after and he said, you know what, the bass is the only thing that I didn't have to mix or EQ or level He goes, it was literally just the sound of the bass plugged in, and that's what I used, right?
Well, the thing that Charles, that was so cool, and I mean, the thing that he said to me was that it was so great that you and I went in there and we didn't friggin' fart around. We just got her done, and I mean, I think, outside of, Kyle trying to get us to do some different things, I mean, we probably could have been done a lot sooner if not for that.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, I love that kind of setup too, and we've done, various recordings with Charles, and he's awesome. Yeah. He's got all the patience in the world, right?
Does he ever? He's fantastic.
Because if you can have patience with me and my brother Kyle, like, that's, if you can put up with the Boudreaux for an afternoon in the studio.
One of the sessions, I think it was 3 minutes, Kyle was ready to take his bat and ball and
exactly.
go. But I will tell you, the tune that we worked on, and it's mastered now, I'm just getting ready to release it, sounds amazing. And that was all him, man. I mean, like, he really, when they were mixing it, he really sat there, and I've got a picture of him where
that was the track with Michelle Ryder, right?
Yeah.
That's a great tune, too.
It sounds great, so really excited about that one. Did you have another one you want to show us?
Yes, so what happened is with this one, I've used it so much for 16 years, and like, I've always brought it to New Brunswick and Ottawa. So at one point, I kind of got paranoid and said, what happens if I lose this bass or what? And it's funny because 3 years ago, I always hear the P basses are so reliable you can literally drive over them. Well, that actually happened to me 3 years ago. I was leaving Halifax to go to a gig in Cape Breton. I had a gig at a place called the Island's Nest in Ayrshire with my cousin Rocky. And I was packing the car.
Boudreau,
exactly, Rocky. Shout out to Rocky.
Yeah.
So I'm packing the car at around like 10 in the morning, and I just get distracted, and all of a sudden, didn't I leave my '69 P bass in the case? Right.
What's your name?
Right, Beth? Exactly, right behind. So I left it right behind the car. So all of a sudden, as I'm backing up, I hear a big crunching noise. And then I knew right away that it was my bass, right?
Yeah.
So at first I started panicking, hyperventilating. I put the car in park. And when I looked at the case was split on both ends. Like, both ends of the case was split. There was a crack in the middle of the case. So right away I'm picturing my bass in a million pieces when I open it up. But luckily, to my surprise, I opened it up. There's not even a new ding on it. Like, it was still in tune. I drove over it and it was still in tune. But because of that incident, I was like, man, I need a backup just in case something happens to that one.
So just to prove that I'm not lying, let's just A-B these. Now, there's minor differences.
Yeah.
This is a 69. This is
a 62 body.
Yeah.
And it has a 68 neck. Now, a little bit of a difference when you A-B it is you can see this one has more of a yellow burst as opposed to an orange burst here. Now, this neck here has a little bit darker rosewood, whereas this one is more like a striped brown kind of rosewood. But they both kind of serve the same purpose. They both have the humbuckers stock, again, as far as the pickups and everything is concerned. So, and this one has a story too, a history for local musicians. This, I guess, where it starts off that I'm aware of is in the mid-'80s. Local bass player Paul Vino bought this bass in Toronto. And he bought it actually just like this. It was a 62 body with a 68 neck attached. And he played it for many, many years in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Now, Bruce Dixon always told Paul, if you ever sell this bass, sell it to me.
Right.
So at one point, Paul wanted a different bass. And he sold it to Bruce Dixon. So Bruce Dixon, about 7-8 years ago, had this bass for a few years. And at that point, when I was talking to Bruce, I was telling him, I'd love a backup for my 69P bass. So this one is so close and so similar that if you ever get rid of it, give me a call. So he was actually trying to finance another instrument, so he called me and said, "Hey, that other
funny the way that works."
Yeah, and then what? I said, "Okay, I'll be right over." So I went over, bought it. And this was about 7-8 years ago. So, and then this one has a little bit of a darker tone to it, which is really cool for some stuff like some R&B kind of stuff. And so they both have they're both similar, but they both have little difference in tone. Both sound great to me right away. You just plug it in, and whether it's a studio or live, I never use effects. I never use pedals. I just use my fingers on the bass, so I just plug it in. And
well, there's
I
something
like the simplicity of
said
that.
for the vintage gear. I mean, a lot of people, you know, some people like the new stuff. I've always been one of those guys where I like a sound. So you can give me a $1,000 snare, and if it sounds like crap, you can give me $100 snare and it sounds good. I'll take the $100 snare. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of how my ears work. And these basses, I mean, like, you know, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
You know,
this one has a lot of, like, you know, if you look at this one too, you know, like I said, every scar, every chip, every little paint tells a story. And this one actually has more of what they call checking in the finish. So checking, it looks like these little kind of almost little lines going through all the bass. And
no, we will caution you kids, buying instruments from local musicians can be dicey, because if they owed somebody money, they might come to the instrument.
Exactly.
And that's a true story. I've seen that happen before. But so I guess in closing, what do you, I mean, we want the frequency to start going here soon. I mean, this is nonsense, but you're working with Weldon and his daughter. Any Boudreau Vanier stuff on the go?
Yeah, you know what, I was talking to Dave as well, and we're going to try to get something on the go for this summer.
Right on.
And then Boudreau Vanier, some instrumental projects I'm working on, some more frequency gigs when they come, more studio sessions.
Yes, we have some more. We have tunes that are actually being written as we speak.
There you go.
So
wicked.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting about that. It was basically it was Michelle Ryder, but it was the frequency. She was basically fronting the frequency.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so
and that was super fun, because I think it was like me, you, Kyle, Leith, same kind of.
Yeah, and it was great. And everybody that's heard that tune has really liked it. So more to come. So anyway, we're gonna wrap this up. Hope you enjoyed this segment. We're going to be doing a lot more of this stuff, and I mean, you can find Ryan on Facebook. And the one thing, he's very quick to get back if you have any questions about basses. He loves CDs, but cassettes. He said
cassettes.
Yeah, so if you get any cassettes that you're looking to get rid of, he's your
We were
man.
talking about that with Weldon earlier. Like, Weldon never threw anything away.
Yeah.
He still got his, reel-to-reel, the cassette CDs. Same with me. Like, I never throw anything away, so I still have albums, cassette CDs. So
I'll have to ask Weldon.
Yeah, if anybody wants to clear their attic, come see me. I'll take it.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, and Ryan's pad's really cool, because it's got some really cool vintage stuff there. So anyway, we got business to do. Thanks a lot to our sponsors, Coors. And you know what? I'm not a corporate sellout, but yeah, I am. And thanks a lot, Ryan. And
Coors? Watermelon beer?
Yeah. No, well, hey, no, that's fine. We'll just
9 Lux.
We'll
That's a Dartmouth too, isn't it?
It's a Dartmouth beer. Yeah, it's Dartmouth beer. So we're gonna wrap up, so I don't drop Brian's wonderful bass on the floor. And thanks for
the
tuning in,
most
guys.
recorded bass in music history too. We got to let Peter James know that, right?
This is
it wasn't
the P bass.
It wasn't a nerdy ball 5-string. It was a Fender Precision
ouch,
bass.
Peter. Ouch. Well, actually, just before we go, because I'll give Peter a shout out. Jordan LeBlanc, who's the major fly fisherman, always talks about how Peter's just an absolute beast. I mean, Peter's one of those guys. Anything he does a poke out with a stick. And
he's really good fishing.
He was, and so. But the last time we were at Dolan's, Mikey comes in, and he's going around the table, and I put because it was so funny. We're sitting there eating, and he goes to me. He goes, "Well, you're all right." He goes, "Ryan, you're all right." And he goes, "Jordan, really? You could have been the best guitar player in Halifax, and all you did was shoot fishing videos. Give me a break." So anyway, it was kind of fun. But thanks.
He's gonna have to give us some fish too. Like, we never, you know what I mean? Like, we see him fish all the time, but where's this fish? Does he throw it back in the ocean?
Catch and release guy, just like a skating guy, right? Anyway, thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.